Well, welcome to Heaven Bound. We are glad you are here on this early autumn morning, and we are excited for our speakers. First up out of the box is Don Huddleston, and we are really looking forward to him. He's been preaching for 58 years. He's been married to Letha for 60 years. When he gets in trouble, she goes by Lethal. They've had a long, happy marriage. I asked him for a fun fact about himself. He didn't really have one right off, so I said, well, let me ask you this. Do you prefer Elvis Presley or Johnny Cash? And without hesitation, he prefers Johnny Cash. So we know then that we're among friends. So without further ado, Donnie Huddleston.
I can't do what he did. I get up here.
Take your time.
Lean forward.
Did you notice they put the old man first? Yeah. Well, we don't know if how long he's gonna last. He'll be around by tomorrow. So. Anyways, hey, it's good to be here, and I want to thank you for the invitation to come and get to be a part of this lectureship, and it's always good. You get to go back to where I began my heaven-bound journey. Oh, I guess, can you believe that? I think it's been 60, some year, I forget how long. I graduated in 62, then 1962. But I became a Christian a couple of years before that. I don't remember. I think it was 59. But anyway, and when I became a Christian, I certainly, this has got to recognize me here. I did not know where, when I decided I'm going to follow Jesus, where he's going to lead me. And he's led us in a lot of amazing ways, in amazing places. A year ago, this past March, I think it was, got a call from some friends up in Estes Park, and they had lost their preacher. They'd gone a year without one. They were in desperate need of help and said, could you come preach for us in the summer? So we got to spend the whole summer. They rented us a cabin down by the river. It was gorgeous. And so when we got through the summer, they said, can you come back in the fall? I said, yeah, we can do that. So we got to spend there the whole year. But today, this morning, the Lord has led me back home. And it's always good to be with you. And I appreciate the invitation to come and share this lesson with you this morning. And I don't know about you, but I can hardly wait to find out what I'm going to say this morning. Because when I and the other speakers were invited to share this lectureship on the theme of joy in Judges, we were asked, or we were given the opportunity to select a text from the book of Judges on which to work with, And I don't know, maybe I wasn't feeling all that well that day. I don't know, or maybe I was looking at the book of Joshua. I don't know, but for some reason, I said, well, I'll take what I call the joy in Gibeah, which is the story that's found over in Judges chapter 20, 19 and 20. I don't know why I did that. I don't know if you've read that recently, but if you haven't, you might remember that there's no joy. There was no joy in Gibeah, for sure. really, my text begins in chapter 17 and 18. And I want you to know I tried. I really did try. In fact, I even asked for help. I said to my elders there in Tonkawa, I need help. I said to Lynn and Sharon Jennings, they're good friends of ours with us this morning, I need help. Help me. Help me find some joy here in these chapters. And people gave me some help, and I'm thankful for that. But I tried. And I have to be honest with you, there's not a lot of joy to be found, at least in those last 5 chapters of Judges. So let me give you a brief overview. Do I have the slides on this morning? And how do we advance the slides? Or somebody does that for me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. You can stay with me if you will. I'm going to give you a brief overview of those chapters so you can at least have some idea of what I'm talking about and why this was such a challenge. I believe I have a lesson on joy for you, but it might not be too easy to see it, actually. In Judges chapter 17, we find ourselves in the hill country of Ephraim, and we're talking about a region that may be 10, 15 miles north of Jerusalem. We're introduced to a man named Micah, presumably of the tribe of Ephraim. Micah had stolen 1,100 shekels of silver from his mother. What a son. And in a moment of conscience, he brings it back to her. And she's so delighted, I don't know whether she's delighted to get the money back or that her son is honest, or trying to be honest. And so she decides to award him or reward him, and she takes 200 shekels of that silver and has an idol cast out of silver, and she presents it to him so that they can have their own personal god or personal idol. And then Micah appoints one of his sons to be the priest in this shrine that he puts together or makes for himself at his home there in the hill country of Ephraim. And then a little bit later, a Levite comes by. And he's looking for a job. And so Micah says to himself, I guess, that, hey, here's a chance to get a real priest, a real Levite here. And so he offers him a job. You could be a father to us, and you could be our priest, and we'll give you a place to live. We'll give you a new garment every year, and you'll get, a small reward for that. And so he takes the job. And then in Judges 18, we find 5 members of the tribe of Dan looking for a place somewhere in Canaan, because their tribe hasn't actually been awarded a place to settle just yet. And so they come through the same hill country of Ephraim on their way looking for a place for the tribe of Dan to settle. And it just so happens that some of them know or hear the sound of the voice of that young priest working for Micah. And so they turn aside and they have a conversation. And what are you doing here? What are you doing? Well, we're on our way looking for a... And so it's, would you inquire to God if we're going to be successful? And so the young priest says he does. And he comes back and he says, you're going to be successful. And they are. They go on and they find this place called Laish. And it's a place where it says there were very peaceful people, unsuspecting people are living and making their home. And so they feel like, and it's a place where everything that you need is water, good soil for agriculture and grazing your flocks and your herds and so forth. And so they decide that's where we're going to. So they go back home and tell the tribe of Dan, that we found the place. So they organized an army, a small army of about 600 men. But on the way back to that place to take the land, they go back through the hill country of Ephraim. They go back by Micah's house. And it just occurs to them, at least to one of the 5 that had gone up there the first time, hey, there's a very valuable silver idol here. Let's take that with us. And so they go into Micah's house and they grab the idol and all of his other household gods. And then they say to this priest, whose name is Gershom, by the way, and he just happens to be the grandson of Moses. His father's Gershom. Gershom is Moses' son, and so this is the grandson of Moses. And they say to him, wouldn't it be better to be a priest to a whole tribe than to just one man? Why don't you go with us? And so he goes. So they go onto that place, to Laish, and they attack that unsuspecting people. They burn the city to the ground. They rebuild the city. They call it Dan. And that's the place where the tribe lived. Then in Judges 19. Now, if you're seeing any joy in any of this, be sure and share it with me when we get through today, would you? In Judges 19, it continues this wonderful, delightful tale telling us about another Levite who had been living in the hill country of Ephraim. And we read where he takes for himself a concubine from the town of Bethlehem. But she doesn't like living up in that hill country, or maybe she doesn't like living with them. Anyway, so she goes back home to her father. So the Levite goes back to get her. And the father says, well, don't just leave immediately. Sit down, let's eat and drink together. So they did. And so the next day, the Levite's ready to go, and the father said, no, don't go today. So this goes on for 5 days. Finally, the Levite and his servant and this concubine get away late in the evening. They pass through Jerusalem, which was called Jabus in those days. But they don't want to spend the night there. They want to get on as home as far as they can. So they get to a little town called Gibeah, north of Jerusalem. And the rule of hospitality was if you're found sitting in the city square, then somebody's supposed to invite you home. Nobody had, until an old guy comes by about my age, and he said, what are you doing here? He said, well, nobody's invited us home. He said, well, come home with me. I've got enough food to take care of you. You'll be all right. So they get to this guy's house, and about that time, some pretty vile men from Gibeah come banging on the door. And they said, give that guy to us so we can have sex with him. And the man of the house says, oh, don't do that. I'll give you my virgin daughter and the man's concubine, but don't touch the man. Well, that prompts this Levite then to put his concubine out the door, and it says they raped her and abused her all night. And then early in the morning, they let her go. And she finds her way back to that man's house, falling on the front doorstep, dead. And the next morning, I presume, after a good night's sleep, the Levite gets up, and he's ready to go home. And he opens the door, and there she is, dead. So he loads her up on his donkey, and he and the servant heads for the home, back up in the hill country of Ephraim. He gets home and he cuts her body up into 12 pieces. And he sends a piece to each of the tribes, of the 12, including Benjamin, I guess. With the idea, what are we going to do about this? So chapter 20. That's chapter 19. Chapter 20 is all about how the Israelites from every tribe are so enraged and so incensed by what has happened that they're ready to go to war. Now, initially what they want to do is they want to get those 5 or those men, I don't know how many men were involved in the raping and the abusing of that concubine. They want them to turn that man over, those people over to them, and they're going to take care of them. But the people of Gilead don't want to do that. They refuse to do that. And then the whole tribe of Benjamin said, no, we're not going to make them do that. We're not going to allow that to happen. So Benjamin organizes an army of 26,000 men. And in the midst of telling this sordid tale, verse 16 tells us that among all these soldiers, that 26,000 soldiers of Benjamin, there were 700 chosen men who were left-handed. I guess we really needed to know that. Each of whom could sling a stone at a hare and not miss. Now, the rest of the chapter 20, is pretty much about 3 days of battle. And the Israelites have gathered an army of 400,000 soldiers. But the first thing they do is they send somebody up to Bethel. Now, normally the Ark of the Covenant and Phinehas, the high priest, and all that is in the city of Shiloh, but it has been moved temporarily to Bethel. So they send somebody to Bethel to inquire of God what tribe should lead the attack. And the word comes back, Judah. Judah shall go first. So the next day, they form their battle lines, and by the end of the day, 22,000 Israelites, not Benjamites, but Israelites, lay dead on the field. So the Israelites make another inquiry of God. They said, shall we go up again to battle against the Benjamites, our brothers? And the Lord answers, go up against them. So they do. And by the end of the second day, another 18,000 Israelites lie dead on the battlefield. So the third time, they inquire of the Lord if they should go up against Benjamin. And the Lord says, go, and for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. So the next day, instead of just trying to just make a frontal attack like they've done for the first couple of days, they lay a trap. They come up with a plan, and they lay a trap, and it works. And by the end of that day, 25,100 Benjamites are now dead on the field. That's something like 65,000 people are dead. 65,000 wives, mothers, sisters, daughters don't have their dad, their loved one coming home. There's only about 600 soldiers, the Benjamite soldiers left. And they escaped to a place called the Rock of Remnant. So the Israelites now, they take it out on Benjamin. And they go throughout their land and they destroy every city and they kill every person that they can. Man, woman, and child. No one left, 600 men hiding in a rock. Essentially, they almost wiped out the entire tribe of Benjamin. Judges chapter 21. And suddenly it dawns on the Israelites, after almost wiping out the entire tribe of Benjamin, that one of the 12 tribes is in danger of being lost completely. Now, partly that's because all the men of the other tribes had made a vow. we will not give our daughters to any of these Benjamite soldiers. So if all you've got is 600 men, you don't have long for that tribe to exist. And verse 2 says, the people, meaning the rest of these Israelites, went up to Bethel. Well, they're going back to God. They're going back to where the priest is, where they sat before God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. Oh, Lord, the God of Israel, they cried. Why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missing from Israel today? Like you don't know? You don't remember that little skirmish up at a place called Gilead? So the rest of that final chapter is all about finding a way to find some wives for those 600 Benjamites. And the first solution they come up with is to kill some more Israelites. They get to investigate and say, now, which of the tribes or clans did not come up and help us in this campaign? And somebody said, well, I don't think there was anybody there from Jabesh Gilead. All right, here's what we'll do. We'll go to Jabesh Gilead and we'll wipe out the entire town except for any women that have not known him, any virgin, any woman that has not known a man. And they do that. And they come up with 400 women, 400 wives for these Benjamites. They then sent word to the 600 Benjamites, offering them peace and the opportunity to have a wife. But verse 14 says, but there were not enough for all of them. Yeah, I'm like, we're 200 short. So the next solution they come up with involves a festival that was held every year at Shiloh, where normally the ark was kept. And every year there'd be a festival where the young girls from Israel would come to Shiloh, and they would sing and they would dance and they would parade. And the idea is to bring those 200 remaining Benjamites who didn't have a wife given to them, they'll be able to come out and they'll get a one-time free pass to kidnap one of those girls and take her home to be their wife. And here's the rest of Israel's plan. They said in verse 22, when the fathers and the brothers of these girls complain to us, we will say to them, do us a kindness by helping them, helping the Benjamites, because we did not get wives for them during the war, and you're innocent since you did not give your daughters to them. In other words, you didn't willingly do it. It just happened. They kidnapped them. So you'll be free of all of that. And so we come to the end of this story that really from beginning to the end just become more and more hard to stomach. In verse 25, we read, in those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So you can see, at least, I think in part, Judges is certainly not overflowing with happy, happy, happy. I think it's greatly true in the rest of the book. There isn't anything by way of example that I can see, at least, that would give us any joy. It's just one stupid thing after another. It's just one bad decision followed by more bad decisions. It's a world that's going crazy. doing what they want to do. They aren't doing what's right. They're just doing what is right in their own eyes, which again and again and again and again proves to be wrong. Unthinkable. Unimaginable. I can't believe it type thing. Not to mention, of course, all of the oddities and the strangeness that we find in these chapters. Imagine, I want you to just think about that. Imagine, what kind of mother is it? What kind of mother is it that thinks it's a good idea to give her son an idol? Rewards his dishonesty and all of that. We're already told that Micah had other household gods, so maybe she just trying to encourage him, type of thing. And what about this Levite convinced by Micah to become his priest? His name was Jonathan. For pity's sake, he's the grandson of Moses, which means we're not even 2 generations away from Moses, the leader of the Jews, bringing them out of Egypt. They're just barely in the land. I guess he figured he was lucky to have any kind of job, But for sure, he had no idea of what he was doing. And did you see how quickly he could be bought when the Danites offered him a better job? Verse 19, chapter 18 says, they said to him, "Be quiet and don't say anything. Come with us and be our father and priest. Isn't it better that you serve a tribe and a clan in Israel as priests rather than just one man's household?" And he said, "Yeah, I think that's right." And he goes with them. And he doesn't get better, he gets worse. Corrupting the whole tribe. The last 2 verses of chapter 18 tell us, "And the people of Dan set up the carved image for themselves. And Jonathan, the son of Gershom, son of Moses, and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the day of the captivity of the land." For the rest of their known history, they were idol worshippers. So they set up Micah's carved image that he made as long as the house of God was a shadow. It's no wonder then that when Jeroboam broke away during the days of the beginning of the divided kingdom, that he was able to set up golden calves for people to worship there in Dan and Bethel. That whole region was saturated with idolatry. And then I think about that other Levite who gives his concubine to the ungodly men of Gilead to rape and abuse all night. He's supposed to be a priest, a servant of God. In the first place, what's he doing with a concubine? He's already got a wife. And who would think about cutting up her body limb by limb? And what did he think was going to happen when he sent a piece of that body to every tribe? That they're going to start a GoFundMe page for him or something? No. He's anticipating somebody's going to do something about this for me. Did you ever stop to think that that might provoke even more killing? Maybe even a war? Imagine Israel raises an army, 400,000 men, to punish a few homosexual thugs up in Gilead. And then there's the surprising matter of those inquiries of God. It says that the Israelites went up to Bethel where Phinehas, the son of Aaron, was serving as high priest. And they want to know which of the tribes should be the first to go up against Benjamin. And verse 18 says, God said, or the Lord said, Judah shall go first. But that day, the Benjamites slaughtered Israel, killing 22,000 people. So they make a second inquiry of God. Shall we go to battle against Benjamites, our brothers? And the Lord answered, go. Go up against them. Absolutely. And that day, 18,000 more Israelites fell before the soldiers of Benjamin. And then the third time, they went to inquire of the Lord. He told them that he would give Benjamin into their hands, and he did. But that day, almost the entire Benjamite army was slaughtered. Now, normally we would think seeking the Lord and trying to get his approval and blessing on something, that's a good thing. But you know what? When you seek the Lord's approval and his blessing, when you've already made up your mind, when you've already set your course, may not be all that helpful. And then you have this massacre of the people who lived in Jabesh, Gilead. Now, granted, maybe they didn't come out to support the war with Benjamin, but that doesn't seem like a really good reason to wipe out every man, woman, and child, except for the few women that were not had any relationships with men. And how would you feel if somebody kidnapped your daughter and you were told to just suck it up? Just don't think about it. So again, we look at these things in Judges, and I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, where's the joy in any of that, in all of that? And the answer is there isn't any. Because that wasn't what the inspired writer, whether it be Samuel or someone else, not what he was trying to do. But as I thought about these things, as I prayed about this lesson, and I desperately wanted to fulfill my assignment, find some joy, I began to realize that what I was reading, as dark and depressing as it was, or as it is, that it's really just kind of a snapshot, isn't it, of the way the world even today actually is. And it isn't pretty. It isn't a thing of beauty and joy. It isn't fun. It's not even safe, for pity's sake. It's not a place where everybody gets to live happily ever after. It's a world today much like the world was then. It's a world where mothers still teach their children terrible things. It's a world where doing what I want, that's the most important goal that everybody has. I did it my way. It's a world where even those who are supposed to be God's servants, who are supposed to be preached, are so often willing to sell themselves to the highest bidder. And it's a world where people can't leave well enough alone. always wanting to change things, where folks are always looking for something more, something new, something else. It's a world where opportunity for doing evil seems to flourish, seems to be doing well. And where even one bad decision messes up life for a lot of people for a long time, especially for children. It's a world where things don't work out right or the way I want them to. It's always going to be somebody else's fault. They're the ones that should be blamed. They're the ones that should have to make things right. It's a world where people are more concerned with looking good than being good. It's a world where one will not do, where we have to have our way, and where people don't like it, they can suck it up. It's a world where the most unbelievably evil things take place. It is a dark, dark world. The Bible is not understating it in any way when it talks about darkness. Very real. Life is cheap. All that matters is getting what our insatiable desires crave. It's a world where what is fair, what is just, and what is true is laughed at, ignored, maybe even hated. It's a world where few ever stop to think about the consequences of their thinking, of their words, of their decisions and their actions. It's a world where spin and lying are common, and where you cannot afford to let your guard down. It's a world where the foolish decisions and vows that are made by one generation will be paid for by the children of the next generation.
Amen.
Where God's thoughts and ways are not at all like the thoughts and ways of men. It is a world in which things do not always work out the way that we had planned, the way that we had hoped, or maybe even the way that we had prayed. It's a world that wants to shun all responsibility and all accountability and blame God for everything that we don't like. It's a world where people will do almost anything to get what they want, even if it means hurting or destroying others. It's a world that does not recognize the absolute sovereignty and the power of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. It is a world much like the world of the judges, where everyone does what is right in their own eyes. Now, even if you started this morning with some joy, it's possible that I poked a hole in that. So give me a little bit of time to just wrap up the lesson in maybe a little more encouraging way. Because I think there is some joy in Judges. It's to be found in appreciating three things, at least three things, that I think this book makes absolutely clear. Number one, the book of Judges makes it absolutely clear, at least to me, that there is a way that doesn't work. And the sooner I get back through my thick skull, or through into my maybe hardened heart, the more blessed I'm going to be, the more joy I'm going to have, the more peace and love and hope I may have. As Clint Eastwood would say, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. Tell me, why do we keep doing it the hard way? Proverbs 14 and verse 12 is a familiar passage to us. God letting us know there is a way that seemed right to a man, but its end is the way of death. It says that. We're told that. It's like a big sign. It's coming down 77 today from Douglas. Just at Douglas, there's a detour sign. It says the railroad crossing is blocked. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. And I tuned on down the road a mile or so, and my friend Lynn said, well, I think we should turn back. So we turned around and go back, and we made the detour. We got here on time. But that's the way it is. We don't want to believe it. God said that. There is a way that seems right, but it isn't right. Why do we have to keep going that way? In those days, there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. How did that work out for them? Not well. But as I said earlier, nothing has changed. That's exactly the same thing going on in our world and lives today. People living their lives as if God either doesn't exist at all, or if he does exist, that he isn't really all that relevant. It doesn't really matter that much. So if you want to have a life that has more joy and less stress and less confusion and less fear, then don't do it the hard way. Quit butting your head against the wall. Number 2, the book of Judges makes it absolutely clear to me that God is so patient with us, with all of us. He doesn't quit when he should, when he'd have a perfect right to do so. He doesn't give up on us. I love the words of Nehemiah chapter 9 and verse 17. But you are a God ready to forgive, gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, and did not forsake them, speaking about Israel. Psalms 103 and verses 8 through 13 says, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. He will not always chide, nor will he keep his anger forever. He does not deal with us according to our sins, nor repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his steadfast love towards those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us. And as a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. Can you believe that God even wanted to continue working with Israel? I'm sure all of us would have given up on them after the 3rd day, or the 2nd day, maybe even after the 1st day. But not God. He's patient. He's merciful. He's gracious. He's slow to anger. And if we ever find ourselves like that prodigal son, and if we find ourselves coming to our senses, where will we find God? We'll find him running to meet us. That's the kind of God we have. And number 3, the book of Judges makes it clear, crystal clear to me, that God really is in control. I mean, when you read Judges, especially those last 5 chapters, it seems like people have lost their minds. They're not thinking right. They're not thinking godly about anything. Everything they're doing is wrong. And yet through it all, you can see God's eternal purpose being unfolding. It's coming to pass. It's being fulfilled. I thought it was interesting that Israel's first king was a man named Saul. Do you remember what tribe Saul was from? Tribe of Benjamin. And do you know what city he was from? He's from Gilead. This is all working out, folks, according to the way God, eternal purpose, planned it. My point is, sometimes our world and our lives may seem to be out of control. Things are happening that we don't understand, and it's natural for us to get stressed and fearful, but just remember as you read through Judges, God is on his way to a rocky place called Golgotha. And while that may seem like the train has finally really gone off the rails, the truth is, God's train is always on schedule. And it's only heading in one direction, heaven bound. So I found some joy in Judges. Judges makes it clear to me, especially in those last 5 chapters, that there's a way that doesn't work. I don't want to do that anymore. Number 2, Judges made it clear to me that God is so patient with us. So gracious. And number 3, regardless of how at times it might even look like, but always God's in control. Thank you for letting me share this stuff with you today.